Hello fellow map makers, welcome to tonight's live map making session with Campaign Cartographer and Prophecy software. Hope you can hear me fine, sound is good, if not let us know in the video chat. It's been a couple weeks now, it was a bit too busy to do a live mapping session last week, so I'm very glad to be back and have another nice map style for you. Since we've finished up the very first annual year, I'm going to move on to the second one, to 2008, and the styles and packs and tutorials that were included in that volume. Good, nice to hear that the sound is going good. So tonight I have the Pete Fenlon style for you. For some of you, especially the younger gamers, the name might not be quite so familiar, but for me and I guess many others, it is one of the legends of map making in role-playing games. Pete Fenlon did all the maps for the Middle-earth maps from Iron Crown Enterprises, Rolemaster and Middle-earth role-playing games. And I didn't exactly start my gaming career with that, but it was early on in my gaming, and I fell in love with these maps, and they are certainly one of the waypoints on my route to map making and cartography in games in general. So I've always had a soft spot in my heart for this mapping style, and was very glad when in 2008 we were able to contact Pete and get his permission to recreate his style for Campaign Cartographer and create a drawing style based on his work. Good. If you've got any questions during the session, as usual, just post them in the YouTube chat. Sue and Remy are there to answer stuff, and they can forward me anything that I can show on screen, which I will try to do. And so we can all learn something from our map making session. So let's go into Campaign Cartographer. Here I've got an example map up, and as you can see, I can zoom out to show the whole map. It is vector style, not using any bitmap assets as such. It's very versatile in Campaign Cartographer. We do have to work a little bit more with sheet effects to make it look pretty. But the style, of course, in the templates has many things already set up to make that easier for me. As Vivian says, yes, almost hand-drawn. It's because the Pete's original style obviously was hand-drawn maps. And I should actually show you an example, but I forgot to put that, bookmark that. Oh, so we'll have to do without one of the original examples for now. We'll just create our own map. So let's go in. This gives us the opportunity to revisit the classical Overland maps from Campaign Cartographer. So I think we haven't done one in a while. So this should also be very useful for beginners who start off with the base program and want to map their role-playing lands. So to start a new map, I'm going up to my file toolbar and choose the new map button. And here we are with our map types. Of course, we're choosing the map type Overland maps. Click next. And then we already have the Pete Fenlon style here selected. Basically because it's one of the very early styles. We don't have it in a metric version yet, but Overland styles are always very easy to create metric versions of. You can just relabel everything in kilometers instead of miles, and you're good to go. So that's not much of an issue, and we are just going to click next here, and then we have our mapping size, or the mapping dimensions to choose. I'll just stick with the base size for now, even though that might be a bit of a large-sized area for this map, but I want to show you how to resize that within the already started map. so you don't have to create a new one if you decide to change your map size after you've started. So instead of doing anything else, doing any special operations, I'm just going to click Finish here, and I'm going to save my map in our video folder. Just call that our example map, and here's our blank map we want to start with. And as you can see, this map style doesn't have an explicit map board or an illustrated map board or anything. You might think I just left that out of laziness or anything when I created the style, but actually that was because Pete's maps originally were always part of a larger whole. Basically, all the maps you got in the games was a section of Middle-earth, from the game supplement describing an area and region. But they could all be put together to create a giant Middle-earth map, or not a whole Middle-earth map, but of the Northwest, where the action of the books takes place. And and the map border would have just gone in the way of that, of just pasting the maps together and creating one giant big image. And so I decided to not do an explicit map border, just do the basic white screening that cuts off anything extending beyond the border, and so to encourage people to create their own maps that join together and create a larger whole. You can of course always draw and add your own map border to this. You could copy one from an existing other style over into this, and it will just work as anything else. But I like this style actually without an explicitly drawn map border. So you'll also see that we do start with a land background, as opposed to many other styles where we start with a sea background. So instead of drawing a landmass, if we want a coastline, we start by drawing the sea. So go up here and choose the default sea button and say I wanted sea coastal area here on the southern section of the map. I just start by drawing the coastline. Let's do a nice little bay going up here, and second one. Each click gives me a section of coastline, for those who are not familiar with the landmass drawing tool here, and you can hit the spacebar to re-randomize the section you're currently drawing. You can also press delete to go back and redraw stuff you haven't drawn before. You can also press T to trace existing lines, but we don't have anything else drawn yet, so that doesn't make any sense. And then I'm just gonna attach the sea to the extents of the map to hide the coastline here outside of the covered by the white screen. And when I redraw the image, you see that that's now nicely behind the white screening border screen and not visible anymore. So that's our coastline. What we can also do with the style, because it's a vector style, it redraws very quickly, so we are working with sheet effects turned on. You can see that if I zoom in here, the section that we already have a dark blue glow on the sea that sets it off nicely from the land background. So what's next? Next, usually draw the mountain ranges and significant hills and stuff like that. The hills, the mountain ranges were always an important features on Middle-earth maps, both by Tolkien himself and by Pete. So what we are going to do, we are loading up the mountains catalog here and grab one of the mountain symbols, and notice that we've got pretty small mountains here for the size of map, and here I'm running into the issue, as I was mentioning before, that the size of map is pretty large for our 1 hour tutorial mapping session here, so we might want to make the map a little bit smaller. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna resize our map area. decided, nah, this is too large for us now. I want to do something smaller. So I'm going to do resize map. And I'm going to do a 600 by 400. So let's say 450 miles map. And there we are. And nice and good. But what's happened? It just resizes the background and the border screen and leaves our the coastline we've drawn as before, now extending far beyond the map border. Of course, because we're not resizing the whole map as such, we're not changing the scale of the landscape, we're just resizing the area we want to map. So what we're going to do, we're going to click the C again, the C drawing tool, and as you can see, I can press E to edit the existing coastline. So what we're going to do, we're going to grab the coastline here at a point and redraw that section here until we're back at the starting point here. Okay, now I've done gonna run into a problem. Basically, Campaign Cartographer have taken the other side to keep than the one I wanted. So I'm gonna undo this, and what I'm gonna try is I'm gonna do this in sections. Do this again, and I'm going to start from the other side. Edit here. Here we go. That's better. And this is just extending a bit too far up here. I want to have a little more land area to actually map. So I'm going to edit this section here and reduce the bay. And that's much better. Alright, so I'm gonna zoom to extents again. And now I can go in, load up my mountain settings again, and start placing the maps. The default maps are brown color, but we also have a varicolor version, so if you wanted to do some green mountains, for example, this is a bit dark green, something lighter here, you could choose that style, choose that color and use the varicolor symbols, but I'm going to go with the default colors for now. And as you can see, relative to the rest of the map, the symbols are now much larger. So I'm going to use these to build a nice mountain range here. Following the general spine of our land area. And perhaps a few more up here, and a couple of mountain symbols. Here we do have some connecting ridges symbols which we can use to extend the mountains in certain directions. See, and this way these can be used very nicely to connect existing mountains together. You can also, of course, use the mirror function of the symbols. So just right click with the symbol on the cursor and then you get the symbol parameters dialog, click mirror, and then you've got the symbol going in the other direction. Go. Set it back to normal to get the normal orientation. Mirror again. Here we go. Perhaps another one down here. And there's the general extents of our mountain range that we want to include. Or actually, you might want to add a couple mountains here so we reach up to the map border. And then I'm gonna grab the hills and build some foothills and other hilly areas on the map. Just filling out the edges of the mountain ranges. With some hill symbols. We can always later go back and add more. I just want to get a general idea where I want to place some hill symbols here on the map. A few places here. That's looking good as a general start for our hills. As you can see, the style uses fairly small symbols, so some of our new styles use larger symbols because they are more detailed than I think. So it's a bit more work to fill an area with the symbols, but it does give a very nice filled and busy overall look if you take the time to use enough symbols. And we also will see for this forest we have some very nice and useful tools that fill the whole areas with forest and tree symbols. We'll get to that in a moment. For now I'm just gonna order my symbols because as you can see here, for example, we have some overlap that we don't want. So this the peak of the mountain is hidden here. So what I'm gonna do is gonna go to symbols, sort symbols and map, right click and select all, then press D for do it, and there you can see our peak is visible again. All the symbols are sorted in the correct way. So what's next? Next up, I usually draw some rivers because the mountains will shape how the rivers flow. And can click the water and the coast and sea catalog to load up the river tools here. What I can also just right click or left click the river tools, and I've got them in different width, but I can also adjust the width just draw a river in one go and then adjust sections later. I'm gonna do that to show you. I'm just going to grab the default river tool and start the first river going here from the mountains all the way down to the coast. Use the F9 on modifier to attach the smooth path exactly to the coast. And I'm just gonna draw some tributaries. Again, use the on modifier to put them exactly on the first river I've drawn. And what I also tend to do is go in, have a closer look. See, not quite happy with the river joins up here, so I'm gonna move that just a little bit. And I'm also gonna draw a little delta in here by drawing in again on modifier, drawing some smaller river runs and have them interconnect. Now I want to split these up into sections and make them different widths. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the split tool down here and just first split the river in certain sections. What often is because where another river joins, the main river naturally becomes wider. I'm going to split them at the points where the rivers show. Split this river at the start of that line. I use the endpoint modifier F5 to grab that point, and then I'm gonna split these in the middle. Let's see how this works. So then I'm gonna use the extract command, the little pipette here, to set my current settings to the properties of the river, and I can see the river down here is half a unit wide. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use right click the change properties button, choose change line width, choose the river section here. You can see now where I split it, so the selected section is highlighted in purple, or magenta to be correct. Press D and set it to width of 1, so it's somewhat wider. Then I'm choosing the next river section here, D for do it, and I'm typing in the width numbers here, so 0.75. So I'm gonna leave these at the default, and then take the end section of the rivers and make these 0.3 wide. And that way you have a nice overall progression from narrower rivers to the widest part near the mouth. It's a subtle effect, but quite nice overall when you look at the map. Sue had a question. Do you have any tips about how to draw natural looking rivers? Well, it's a bit of an just taking a look at how natural rivers flow on many maps and getting a feel for that. There's really nothing much I can say how I draw them specifically to make them look as they are. I always start usually the main river and then do tributaries starting near mountains, higher elevations obviously, and get a balance in between not meandering too much and being too straight. I think that's something you'll have to experiment with and find your own style as well, because this is not naturally a totally 100% realistic river flow. It's just something I think looks nice on a map. You know, if you want to go into more realistic looking ones, you might even look more at natural rivers, or real world rivers and real world maps, and take your cues from them. Okay, so we've got our first river down. Let's add a few more. Take the default river tool. This will be the one we've drawn is the main, let's say it's the main river on our map, and then just add a few smaller ones. Here we go. What you can always take into account is rainfall patterns. Usually a mountain range has a site where the predominant winds are coming from and where rain will be deposited, and in that direction the rivers will flow off. So saying if we've got the main winds coming from the west or southwest here, the air will rise and cool as it goes over the mountains, and that will make it drop its moisture as rain. So most of the rainfall will be on the southwestern side of the mountains and will naturally run off to the southwest again. And the northeastern section of the mountains will be much drier. And I tend to show that a bit by putting much more rivers on one side of the mountains than the others. Good example for that, if you want to take a real world example, is the Andes in South America. You'll see the big river patterns of the Amazon and other rivers on the eastern side, and then the partially very dry countries like Peru and Chile on the western side of the Andes. So we'll have our wet and rain-soaked parts here on the southwestern edge and have the northeast be much drier. What I'm going to do now is going to split the longer rivers into a few sections, so I'll also have them in different widths, so these are not suddenly all the same width. And then I'm going to use the change line width again to make the upper sections of the rivers smaller, to which we had the 0.3, and then we had some lower sections like these ones, not this one, a bit wider at 0.75. So we've got our main river flows on the map, looking quite natural, to my eye at least. And you can always add further tributaries later, go into detail and add more stuff. But this should be enough for our first draft of the map, basically. Now I want to go and add a little bit background colors to make the mountains stand out a bit, and also perhaps show the drier areas in the north. So I'm going to take a look at our terrain tools, and I do have the default terrain. No, actually I want something. Do I have? Let's take a look at the all tools. I want a general background in variable color. There's the to define default variable, but it does look all green. It should be blue at the moment if it's variable color, because my current color is so, and you see it does not use the current color at the moment, which is wrong, obviously. So we're going to activate that. I must have messed with the setting at some point. And now you can see it's the current drawing color here. So I'm going to start that tool, save the settings, but I'm not going to do it as blue, and instead I'm going to switch to a color matching our mountains. And then I'm going to just draw a smooth polygon covering the background, rough background of our mountain range. Oops, I accidentally hit my right mouse button here, which is a shame. So we're going to redo that. Come on, guys, here's our color. And that's the outline of our mountain range. We have another higher section here, which I'll also outline in brown. And you can also already see that our colors here are fading very much into the green. That's because our terrain tools are set up to be partially transparent, to give the overall map very soft color transitions and not make the color changes too strong. You can always, of course, mess with those yourself. But what I also wanted to do is add a grayer background to the north here to make a bit more of a barren wasteland looking style. So I'm going to choose the color again. As you can see, I'm back to the blue. That's because I'm changing my color during the drawing tool session, and Cartographer then remembers the previously selected color and goes back to that when I've finished drawing with my tool. So I'm gonna draw this again here beyond the map border. And see it's not a straight gray, but it does give take some of the green out of the background and looks quite good. What we can also do is, of course, use the same tool to show some more fertile areas like the river valleys. So that's what I'm going to do next. And we actually have a tool for that uses, it's not set up as a smooth tool here. I think I'm actually going to change that to the smooth for my drawing here. So I'm going up to the options in the drawing tool and set it to smooth. Save. And now I can go in and use this to outline my river. And here, let's go in there and show you how to trace stuff. So what I'm going to want to do now is, obviously I don't want to draw into the sea area. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use T for trace. Select the coastline, that's the section I want to trace. The starting point, then I go along the coastline to the point I want to stop my trace, and then I'm zooming out again and drawing the rest of my river valley. We can also use this to trace longer sections of the coast. So I want to go quite a way here, and then a bit up the river. There we go. Here we mainly follow the river valley. Another section here. Here we can choose to draw a longer section of the coastline in darker green, but keep it to a fairly narrow strip along the sea. And the last section here. And there we've got our fertile areas along the rivers and the coast. So I've got another question. Okay, yeah, I think the question from Torben is a bit going beyond what I can show you in the sessions. Swamp and desert, I'm gonna show these in a moment, at least the swamp. And I think I've shown how to create this in the, how to make a bigger map from several smaller ones in the session 2 sessions ago, Darkland City. There I showed how to extend or connect map borders so they fit together from different sections. So you might want to take a look at the Darkland City live mapping session. I think I've shown some stuff that might be useful there. Good, so that's looking pretty nice. Next up is adding some forests. I'm gonna load up the forest catalog, but there's also the swamp tool in here, but the forest drawing tool is actually only in here, I think. Here we go. Here we've got a couple different forests. One VCs for varicolor, so you can draw forests in different colors as well, but I'm gonna stick with the default forest up here. And here I'm going to zoom in a bit first, and I'm thinking I want to draw a larger forest area here first. And just outline the area I want my forest to go. Then right click the finish, and you can see Cartographer does fill that with a nice symbol fill. Let's go on here at the next forest section between the two rivers. You can see I'm leaving out the rivers themselves, because if I draw the forest tool across the rivers, it will cover up the river flow, and it will be hard to make the rivers really nicely visible on top of the forest. So what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to draw the major part of the forest this way between the rivers, and then I'm going to go in, and then I'm going to grab the individual tree symbols and use these to just fill out the area here with some individual tree symbols to show that's actually the river is going right through the forest. What you can of course also gonna do is just grab the forest background color, draw that across the river section here, and then you also have the dark green background of the forest along the river. Let's do the same up here. Get the forest tool again. To our section here. Go along the hills. Looks good. Grab the terrain background. Draw that across the river valley. And then I'm gonna go in and spread some single trees along the edges to make this look a little bit nicer. You can of course use these to show forests in the up in the mountains, wooded areas. What you can also always use is these sections. Put these together and then grab the individual trees and fill out the edges and make little woods like this. Yeah, and you can also see it's fairly quick and easy to fill the different sections, to fill in the forests. And we'll just do a couple more. So we have a nice line of heavily wooded areas, forests running along the southern edge of our mountains. Go. Let's do a few smaller pieces. Here. Here. And then just gonna, what I always like to do is to spread some individual trees along the forest edges so they don't look too sharp and unnatural. Again, I can just spread them wildly and sort our symbols later, so I don't have any wrong overlaps. Again, here I can take the forest background and draw that across sections that I want to show that the river is actually running through the forest. Again, a few more trees here. You'll notice that this is a fairly old style from the lack of wooded area tools, where you can just use a drawing tool to outline an area and have it filled with individual tree symbols. It's more sparse than a forest area. We could go in and set these up, but that's not quite the topic of tonight's session, so I'll stick to using the tools we already have for that style. From 2008, this style is now 13 years old, and in some places this shows a little bit, but I think it still looks very nice. Still love it. But in the meantime, we've developed some additional tools for Campaign Cartographer, some new commands, and the style does not yet take advantage of those. Well, we can see the effect this have of the nice forest sections along the southern edge of our mountains. Next up, what I want to add is some swamps. And we've got a tool in here. And Torben had the question how to draw realistic swamps. Well, you've got to consider your geography. Obviously, for a wet swamp, you'll have to have some rainfall and wetter areas. Low-lying can be, the swamps can also be in higher areas usually called moors. Lower-lying areas is always a good point where water collects, where rivers get slower and spread out. So this would probably be a good area for some swamp stuff. It might even be the whole mouth area. The delta of the river is swampy. So I'm gonna again use the tool to trace the coastline. And there you've got a nice swamp section. And you can also draw some here alongside the coast. It's a low-lying area. Could also be that it's surrounded by hills, basically making it's hard for the water to flow away, to flow towards the coast. So we're going to add some hills here around that to show. Got a sink. Can't think right now of what to call that in English, but a low-lying area where the water collects and can't really flow off. So let's add another swampy area here. We can also always go in here and draw this over our existing symbols. Campaign Cartographer will of course put this correctly in the correct order. So the trees are visible above the swamp texture. Good. And then we're gonna do a big swampy area up here. So this is a nice adventuring area with some wildlands where some nasty critters might live. Though I think the swamp style doesn't look so nice when you make it too large in one go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo that and do this in a few more smaller sections. I think that looks better. So I'm going to put a little bit along the coast here. It's much better. We can now also go in and add some lakes. And then perhaps a few narrow rivers. The narrow river tool. And then add a few trees to the area. With a little more time, I would probably go in here and modify this a little bit, make it a little bit more filled up with symbols, but from this perspective, this is already looking pretty good. So next up is adding some structures, symbols, cities, settlements, and so on. I'm gonna load up the structures catalog. Yes, as Wilman says, actually the swamp fill is showing above the rivers, so that's why you're seeing it here. The green tufts on the lakes. So we'll see land features. Rivers. Have a look where these got placed. No, for list. Group deck, that's on the sheet because it goes on the sheet symbols, and therefore this is above the rivers. You could of course move the lakes sheet down in the list. Oh no, didn't they go on the lakes? Let's have a look. Info list. No, they didn't even go on the sheets lakes, but we could change that. I move the sheet. If we didn't want the marshy, watery symbols showing, we could put them on their separate lakes sheet, and then they would cover those symbols up. Okay, the lakes have the sheet effects are not correctly set up for the lakes here, so I would have to fiddle with that. So what I'm going to do for now is just going to put them back on the river sheet, because I'm quite happy with how this looks. This would depict very shallow lakes, very marshy areas, a mixture of waters and very, very swampy land. So I think that works quite well for this area. And if I wanted to show a river without that, or a lake without that, I would make sure to draw the lakes, the swamp texture outside of the lake polygon. Okay, back to our structures. So I want to add a coastal country here. So I'm going to go in and grab a city symbol, place this here at the river mouth, then a few towns, major towns of the country. Oh, let's put another city down here. For placing larger settlements, they tend to be on rivers, and so if you have a prominent river and important section like the mouth of where the river meets the sea, or where another river joins, it's very common to have a settlement near such places. So I'm going to put a town up here. Here on the river. Of course, this is not 100%. You can have towns and settlements where no major rivers meeting the coast, but that is a bit more of an exception. Then some villages. Places like River Delta, where you've got lots of marshy areas, might not be such a good place for a city sometimes, because it's difficult to build there, and it's subject to much flooding, and therefore people might avoid this. So I have places where I have a river mouth and no settlement. And then some fortifications, a castle. Yeah. Say we've got a pass here going across the mountain range. That might be a good place for a castle to be. Yeah, got another one. Ah, yes, the plateau tools. Right, thanks for the reminder. It's certainly something I want to show because the style, one of the defining features of the style is the ridges and plateaus that Pete Fenlon used to show his landscape. And before I run out of time, oh, we're already 10 to 7, so I should really do that. Is these kind of ridges. We do have some pre-drawn symbols that can be used to place them down. You can see, just grab a ridge here and place it on the map. And then the symbol splits up onto multiple sheets and therefore gets the correct symbol. If the sheet effects applied, but these are obviously limited in shapes and forms, so you only have this selection of different shapes available, and you might want different ones, and I want to show some of these here on the more barren northern edge of the map. And we've got the tools to set these up. We can first I draw the ridge line, basically the line where the ridge will be running along. Can also do multiple ones. And then I'm going to place symbols alongside these. Draw symbols along. And this is already set up here. See, we've got a ridge symbol that can be placed alongside the line. We define the size of the symbols along this line. You can actually just load the setting. If you go into Program Data folder, C3 Plus, and under the system folder, under the fillers, and you'll see there's the CA13 ridgelines escapement. And then just gonna click on, but you can also set these up yourself. Click OK, select the line, and it will place these ridge symbols along the line. And then you go in, and basically the green shadow shows the lower side of the ridge. So if the shadow casting, so if you're saying the ridges are going down towards the north here, I'm going to grab the terrain. Should have a separate tool for that. Ridge shadow, there we are. Terrain ridge shadow. Going to start that, and then I'm going to trace the line I used to outline my ridge, and then I'm just going to draw the shadow green in the direction I want it. Here we go. Do the same on this ridge line. Refresh. And then I'm going to erase by color. And this purple, that's the color the ridges lines have been drawn in. Press D for do it. Now they're gone. And this gives you these nice ridges, like similar to the one here. Again, if we wanted to show some ridges going down here. That's our lines, again going into our symbols along. Path. Again, because the style is so old, the drawing tools are not set up directly for that, but the mapping guide included with the style has a step-by-step explanation how to do these. And again, course, you don't need to do the tracing here. If you want to have the shadow a little more off from the ridge line, you can just draw it by hand, following the symbols here. Way to make it a little more irregular looking, but especially for the longer ridges, it's just more convenient to trace the ridge line. Yeah, I want it to be a little bit outside the symbols. And again, finally, I erase by color 7. Okay, do it. And there's my ridge lines on the map. Good, then let's add a few roads and perhaps a couple labels, and then we are already pretty much done for tonight. We've got a major road drawing tool here. Use this to connect the major settlements. Then got minor roads to go to settlements a little bit further away. And you've got also these nice tool for roads with dotted points or paths. So you can, this is basically a symbol, a connecting symbol, a very simple connecting symbol with just some dots as the symbols used. You can draw this just as like a line. And then Campaign Cartographer will fill this with dotted symbol dots that nicely show small paths. It's even got a little random variation in the symbols that makes the individual dots as in different sizes, makes it look more hand-drawn. One thing I want to show you what makes the map look quite a little bit nicer is actually offsetting the coastlines a little bit with the contour lines here. We've got the contour C line, and we can use this to follow the coastline roughly, because this is basically how Pete Fenlon offset his coastlines in his original maps as well. So the first one is the widest one, then we're gonna contour C2 for second line. Again, I'm a bit quick here now because of time limits. You might take some time to make this a little bit nicer. I think it works quite well already. And the third one for the narrowest line, which I'm gonna draw farthest away. And there we've got our coast outlines. Good. Then we've got compass rose and a scale bar. See, you can just decide on the type of map, or it should be metric or in miles. Here I'm just gonna put in kilometers here, for example. Oh, but they don't like the font used. I thought this had it's got the Gaelic font included. So if you have installed the style, you have the font available on your system. Center align the bottom center, resize, and actually probably should change the color to black. And now you could go in and start labeling the whole map. Put the names to your cities and rivers and so on. Place the label where it's appropriate. Again. The red works nice for the important cities. Might want to actually put this on a multi-line. There, that's better. And this way you can build your overland map. I think we've already got a pretty good basic outline, outline and layout for the map. And can work from here to complete the map. For now, we are finished for today with the map making session and the Pete Fenlon style. I hope you liked what you saw. It was useful for you, showing some of the tools and how to use them. And I hope to see you again in a little bit of time. Next week, I think Remy will do the video. No, wrong. Next week. Next week it's still going to be me. After that, I'll be away for a while on holiday. No, but I'll see you again next week. We'll have another session then. So far, have a good night. Happy mapping and keep up the good work. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.